Tonight, on Days of Our Steelers, the Black and Gold Brigade finds more ways to play down to their competition and distract themselves from the main prize of a Super Bowl ring. Big Ben develops another paradox after threatening to retire last season, by boasting he will play at least 5 more years. The diva Antonio Brown openly criticizes the media for not giving him any privacy and nitpicking everything, and then demands to be the center of attention by entering camp via private helicopter. Le'Veon Bell finally begins his round 2 of contract holdouts, once again rejecting a healthy salary and being behind a line for cringeworthy rap tracks and slapping asses at strip clubs. In what ways will the trauma and lack of focus on the game unfold this time? How will the team pretend that all is well as the defense unravels around them? All this and more coming this season on Days of Our Steelers. God, this week on Days of Our Steelers, the Le'Veon Bell saga takes a sharp twist from the expected outcome. Many on the team believed that he would be back on Labor Day, yet practice passed without a certain running back showing up. Later, the Hernandez defector Marquise Pouncey telepathically predicted that he would be at practice on Wednesday because of contact with the dead. The spiritual realm lied to him as Le'Veon was nowhere to be found. The entirety of the offensive line is rightfully angry at this revelation and proceeds to verbally assault him and his character. Meanwhile, Antonio Brown channels his inner Rodney King and wishes everyone would just get along. As the missing Bell is off rapping about how he feels worthy of payment to a Swiss bank account, the Steelers trek to their yearly holiday. A matchup against the Browns in Cleveland, a usually wonderful time featuring dominance and destroying Cleveland spirits, was marred by ineptitude. The Black and Gold Brigade played hideously down to their competition on a miserable day, with weather matching the mood of Browns fans most weeks. Thank God for James Conner and his awful haircut. In one of the most embarrassing displays of football since Monsoon Day against Miami, the Steelers committed 6 turnovers, 5 of them by Captain Fatfuck. Despite this, the Browns once again browned on a repeated basis, yet the Steelers failed to capitalize, resulting in a deeply embarrassing tie. Cleveland's losing streak is over, but the winless streak continues on. The city's water supply will not be open to the Browns faithful. As angry Yinzers blow up the phone on local sports radio, we can safely conclude another episode of Days of Our Steelers.
They're both losers! Losers!
After what seems to be an age hurt, this week on Days of Our Steelers, the diva struts his peacock feathers against the evil media. This time, an ESPN reporter penned a profile of Antonio Brown that didn't fillet him and his glory at every turn. Brown responds to this unbiased reporting the way most thick-skinned people do, by threatening physical violence against them on Twitter. Little does he know that whatever goes on the internet stays there and is forced to apologize for being caught in the act. Mike Tomlin, the great leader that he is, shits his pants and does nothing about it. Meanwhile, another week passes as Le'Veon Bell remains MIA from the team. Bell is coping with his absence by partying it up on South Beach. Truly a man with his priorities in order. As the Steelers play Kansas City at home, they chose to pay tribute to Le'Veon by not showing up until the second quarter. Despite allowing the Chiefs to go full read in 1 quarter, it's not enough. The team defense is absolutely atrocious as Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs treat them like wet cardboard. Too bad they're too busy being cocky as none of them can make a tackle. The diva, as always, makes himself the center of attention by bitching on the sidelines because he isn't getting the ball as the Steelers are humiliated once again. The remainder of the league laughs as they await another episode of Days of Our Steelers. It's a tough time to have grown up with the Steelers. Years of cock-teasing and being unable to beat New England have taken its toll. The organization is burning to the ground as the inmates are running the asylum. Everything I've been complaining about isn't just reality. It's even worse than I fathomed. The Steelers are imploding and there is only one thing I can count on. Yes, it's nothing but SeatGeek. I've been trying to enjoy nights out at the ballpark before the baseball season ended, and this app helped me to get great tickets at a bargain price. There's no drama involved. I look for games, they sort tickets from red to green on a 1 to 100 scale, I get a view from where I may be sitting, I buy the tickets securely, I scan myself into the stadium on the app. Simple, effective, hassle-free. I know it seems like I'm shilling, but I honestly wouldn't keep doing this if I didn't approve of the product. You may be skeptical, but let me help you out. Use the code word TREE in the link below and save $20 off of your first ticket purchase. I can only thank SeatGeek because this is going to be a long football year. I already have a headache. This week, on a very special episode of Days of Our Steelers, the fallout from the Chiefs game is so widespread that we had to split this segment from Sports Ball and make it into its own video. The crusade against all things discipline begins with the underachieving linebacker Bud Dupree being chirped at by a fan wondering why he keeps performing magic and disappearing on the field. Dupree unleashes his inner 12-year-old and says that he's with his girl. Little did we all know that during their hookup, the girl role-played as a quarterback and Bud couldn't get anywhere near her. Refusing to be outshined by his players after a sideline tantrum, Antonio Brown chooses to respond to his own critic in the form of a former PR representative of the Steelers. He said that he was nothing without Big Ben. He carried AB to his contract and reputation. Total blasphemy in his eyes. The living version of Narcissus chooses the high road this time and tweets to the man, "Trade me. Let's find out." As the world explodes in a sea of arrogance and short-sightedness, AB reinforces his work ethic and drive by no showing practice the very same day. Now the panic really starts setting in. Coach Tomlin once again covers his ears and refuses to comment on Brown's antics. The diva eventually returns to practice the next day, only to be given a light punishment from the team. He will not be benched for the next game, just a small spanking and a few bucks in terms of fines. What does AB do after this regard? Flip out on the media yet again. His actions are the result of those dang dirty sports pundits who scar his wonderful name. Just like Stormy Daniels, whom is caught up in her own web of controversy as she alleges an affair between her and Donald Trump. During this unholy tryst, Trump had a right hand at his side, Captain Fatfuck. He was chosen to personally escort her back to her hotel room, and maybe get some sloppy seconds as well. Daniels alleges that Ben wanted a goodnight kiss, i.e. tap that ass like an oil reserve. Stormy refused and went into her room as Big Ben awkwardly sat there and knocked on the door for a few minutes. He should have tried to evade the pocket a few times, then throw deep to an open wide receiver. Too bad he would have overthrown him by 15 yards. Thus leads to our prodigal son in this drama, Le'Veon Bell. Bell is once again away from the team for the personal sabbatical of relaxing and barely lifting a finger in Miami. The Steelers have all but thrown their hands in the air and removed him from the active roster, but that doesn't stop Le'Veon from crying poor. "Just pay me," he cries from his 5-figure jet ski. He needs to be compensated fairly. He says this as he has pissed away more money in the last few weeks than most of us will make in the next decade. This hasn't stopped Bell from his true passion in life: terrible rapping. Instead of dropping defenders with brilliant moves, he's dropping those sick beats and threw a party for his newest DP. Steelers fans cringe as most music fans cringe at his so-called music. The Steelers must have cringed too, as they are actively shopping Le'Veon for what will probably be a few terrible towels. Yes, even as Mike Tomlin sits and wonders where the fuck he went wrong, the three-ring circus has arrived in the Steel City. Steelers legend Hines Ward simply puts his hands over his face in disgust and realizes this isn't the team he retired from. Perhaps we can call it karma for their arrogance, or just years of neglecting to treat the cancer as it metastasizes into a wide-scale infection. The law will be laid down, the whips will be cracking, and the fear of God will be put into the hearts of every man in that locker room. This renaissance will begin against the hotshot Buccaneers, led by a man whom the Steelers know well in Ryan Fitzpatrick. The Steelers proceeded to remove the curtain behind the imposter and realize that this is, yes, Fitception. The Buccaneers proceeded to walk themselves off the plank on drive after drive with a combination of self-inflicted wounds and ref balls. To try and atone for these sins, Chris Conti offered himself as sacrifice to a vengeful stiff arm courtesy of Vance McDonald. He is currently wanted for third-degree murder in Florida. Even as the Steelers were as undisciplined as they were off the field, they coasted to a strong lead by halftime. Despite the so-called cruise control, the Steelers proceeded to let the foot off the gas and turtle. The result was Tampa Bay lining up their ships next to the trauma-laden Steelers port as they nearly blow a 20-point lead. Despite all attempts from the defense to reinforce that they are indeed terrible, Pittsburgh escapes with a lucky victory. Regardless of the media narrative changing, this win proceeds to leave the Pittsburgh faithful with more questions than answers. Does this team have any sort of self-control? Can this defense even stop a light breeze? Will they be relying on Captain Fatfuck to bail them out of every situation? Or will he have to force passes to the diva so he can shut the hell up? As I fear that this season is peaking far too early, it's time to conclude another episode of Days of Our Steelers. Hope to God I never have to split this off again. This week on Days of Our Steelers, we tried our damn hardest to put this into sports ball, but they had to make it too juicy to combine once again. The story begins after last week's near snagging of defeat from the Buccaneers, as Captain Fatfuck suffers allegations of diving on a certain roughing the passer call. Knowing the jig is up, Big Ben admits that, unsurprisingly, he imitated Neymar on the football field. Perhaps he learned such technique from the rape allegations, who knows? Despite his diving and off-sync throws downfield, the real star this week is Le'Veon Bell. He's like Moses, except instead of 40 years in the desert, he's partying it up in Miami. Let my payment flow, his eternal cry shall be. Former Steelers linebacker James Harrison knows of his plight and has some sound advice for him. Show up and sign the tender as late as possible, then fake injuries do not be forced to carry the ball 30 times a game. Of course, who couldn't trust the wisdom of James Harrison of all people? Mark Madden couldn't. He took a break from eating Yinzer adoration lathered with hot sauce to rightfully call him an asshole. James Harrison calls an audible from the Antonio Brown playbook. He threatens violence against the radio host. Mike Mitchell, not knowing when to shut the fuck up, chirps in from the sidelines about the so-called haters that ran him onto the unemployment line. The football game taking place is one of critical importance to the Black and Gold Brigade. It's against their hated rival, the Baltimore Ravens, at home. Appearances need to be kept. The Ravens are thinking they are hot shots. They need to be put back in their place. The Steelers flex their muscles, eat their spinach, and promptly shit themselves early as they fall behind 14-0. Pittsburgh was shown mercy as the Ravens made several key mistakes that prevented them from running up the score. The Steelers even tied up the game. Yinzers everywhere were preparing for a night of lotion and Kleenex tissues. The Ravens were ready to die. And then the offense proceeded to do nothing. Who knew that calling a one-dimensional game with no running plays would make a team predictable? It also doesn't help that nobody in the passing game is in sync. The rest of the NFL got to witness a clinic on how to stop this offense. You sprinkle Old Bay all over the field and pelt them with soft-shell crabs. 47 yards of total offense. That's all that was mustered in the second half. The defense was once again reminiscent of a landfill. Shit everywhere. The Ravens' offense imposed their will on the tattered curtain. Not even Renegade can allow the D to do anything of note. Like seriously, how the fuck does nobody on this defense know how to make a fucking tackle? How many first and second round picks have we used on these scrubs over the past few years? Can we somehow not allow them to gain 4 or 5 yards after first contact? This is one of the worst defenses I've personally seen this team have. How the fuck is everyone on the team pretending this shit is fine? This is a fucking disgrace. Excuse me, I slipped out of character. The final score of this affair does not tell the true story here. The game was a total embarrassment for the Steelers. Absolute domination by a once inferior division rival. Baltimore themselves weren't happy with their offensive output, as they felt they could have scored far more than what they did. This is the reality of the Steelers. Hard questions need to be pondered. Maybe the Black and Gold Brigade is just a bad team. Perhaps the window of Super Bowl contention has slammed shut. Full-blown panic has set in for the Steel City. Pittsburgh shall remain miserable and angry in everyday life for the remainder of the work week. As Le'Veon slowly licks his chops at this team's self-destruction, we conclude another episode of Days of Our Steelers.